Hi, and welcome to this tutorial on fixing skies. A few years ago, I wrote a blog about shooting the sky, and my goal in that blog was to advocate going out and just taking pictures of the sky whenever it was beautiful. Sunrise, sunset, blue skies with white puffy clouds, storms passing by, God rays coming down. It didn't matter. If the sky was beautiful, take a moment and take a photo. And that could be with your camera, your big kid camera, or your phone. It didn't really matter as long as you were capturing the image, because those skies can be used later to improve other images that maybe just didn't have the sky that you wanted. The photo on the screen right now is a prime example. I hopped out of the car and I took this image because it conveyed exactly what I wanted it to, which was this sort of thin dirt road with potholes in it, winding its way through these incredibly beautiful moss-covered mountains. This road is in Iceland. It was taken up in the Highlands and very hard to get to. So the idea that I could run back here, even from my hotel, is just unrealistic, which meant that I either captured the image and then tried to work with it, or just gave up altogether. And you know what? I wanted the image. So for me, I thought about it and I thought, you know what? This isn't the sky that I'd hoped for in this moment, but everything else about this image is what I wanted to capture. I'll fix the sky later. And that is exactly why I wrote the blog about shooting the sky. So in this tutorial, I'm actually going to demonstrate how I go through my process to correct skies. So I actually have 3 images open, and I'm going to demonstrate this technique with all of them. Really quickly, let me disable that. Here's another image. This one was taken in Maine, and again, I kind of liked the lines created by the bridge stanchions, but yet I have a bad sky. So all in all, not very useful as an image. And then I also have this taken in the geothermal area, again in Iceland. Kind of this beautiful painted hillside. If you look closely enough, there's these little people in here that give scale to just this enormity of this location, and yet not a good sky. So I'm going to actually use all 3 of these images to demonstrate this technique of replacing skies. So first and foremost, as you saw in the other image, I created a mask. The simplest way to do this is to choose the quick mask selection tool and go ahead and drag along wherever your open space is. So in this case, it is along this ridge line, and then from here, I just create a mask by clicking on it. Now, yes, we've lost our image. It's not the end of the world, and you'll see why in a minute. It's just a kind of a means to an end here. Again, same process here. Increase the size of it. I still have the tool because it's retained itself from one image to the next. I'm going to go ahead and go across the skyline. And as you can see here, I've actually dipped into the mountain. I want to fix that. So to create, as you can see in the quick selection tool, there's a plus right now. To create a minus, as you can see, it's going back and forth from plus and minus there in the middle of the screen. All you do is hold down the Alt or Option key on your keyboard. And with the minus, we're going to go ahead and just push our selection back up so that it's only in the sky. Okay, cool. There we are on that one. And lastly, the bridge. Now in this case, because this took longer, I wanted to just demonstrate that you can actually take a complicated image and also substitute a sky. And in this case, I have already created the mask. So let me go back and re-enable it, showing that I've cut out all of the stanchions and the wires and the supports as well as the land. So this was done exactly the same way with the plus and minus, using the quick selection tool, just working my way through the image patiently. And I didn't want to spend time doing that here in the video. So, but exactly the same idea. So let's go back to our original image, and in a minute we'll have that pop back up. One thing that I like to do, once I've created my mask, is actually kind of push it into the image a little bit, and you'll see what I mean in just a second, but I don't want the edge of the mask to be right on the mountain. Kind of can create on any object, because it creates a glow. So to do that, we're going to hit the Properties tool. If this is not in your toolbars, you can actually come and find it, right here in Window, and then I've got Properties selected, and that'll pop up the Property toolbar, and then you're able to go in and change and refine any of your properties on your layers. So in this case, I have my mask, and I'm going to actually take the mask edge. So go ahead and click on that. It gives you a black and white version that happens to be the view mode that I am in, and I shift the mask, and in this case I'm going to shift it into the image, and it doesn't change very much. It's a subtle change, but it's enough of a change. You see from back and forth, you can see it sort of drop, coming back and forth. I want this to drop down. So basically I've pushed the mask into the mountain. So I'm just going to hit OK. All right, so now this is ready to start bringing in layers of sky. So we're going to go back to Lightroom. That's where I keep all my images, and you can see that I've already done a little bit of refining. I have keyworded skies that I liked. This is also off from the trip in Iceland. I don't necessarily need to use Iceland photos for this. You'll see I have here in the navigator side, I have a whole folder called skies. It has 1,700 images in it. So by all means, I don't need to necessarily use Iceland skies, but I figured we had beautiful skies in many, many places, just not on the day I needed it, so that I could go ahead and just use skies from Iceland. In this case, I rated them just so they'd be easy to find. And like I said, use my keywords. So now that I've got them all available, the ones I've decided would probably work in the images that I'm editing, I'm going to go ahead and select all. So that would be Command or Control A, or you can come up to Edit and select all up here. And I go on to right click, and I'm going to say Edit in Photoshop. So we'll come back to Photoshop and we'll wait for these to populate. So as you can see, the images are starting to drop in. This can take a little time because I have so many files open that it took a little time to get rolling. They're slowly populating across our page here. All right, in this case I actually opened up our photo again, so I'm going to go ahead and just close this image, even though, because we just don't need it twice. So here we are, we have all of our skies open. Obviously they're all layered on top of each other, so we can't see them yet. So my next solution is to come into Workspace and arrange and tile horizontally. And I do this so that I can see the images I'm working with and drag and drop my skies into them. And one of the things that you need to do when you do this task is to try to mirror the color and lighting that you had to begin with. And it just makes it a little bit easier. This is awfully small, and I apologize for that. I kind of sort of used to it, so I know what I'm looking at. But the first three are the images that I showed you already that I've created my masks, and then all of the remaining tiles here are skies. So if you click on them, you can, not with the brush tool, deselect that. So if you click on them, they show up here on the right in a very small thumbnail for so you can see the background layer for each one, and you can kind of get a sense of what you're looking at. Now the thing to do is start to kind of pull them into the files that we are working with. So in this case, this is a good tone for our second image. The lighter images, for instance, let's see, this one will, where's my mouse, work here. We'll drop that into this one. This nice gray image will fit nicely here, as well as here. And you know, as you can see, I'm kind of just poking around at the images and taking skies and just dragging and dropping the layer. There's no special technique to this. It literally is taking the background with a left click and hold, dragging it over the image you want to drop it into, and letting go. And you see that they start to populate inside the images. And I'm probably duplicating a couple here just because I have so many open, but that's okay. I am almost ready to start going through our process. I'm not sure if I did this one up, but I might have. And I'll do that here. All right, now that I've started to populate images, and you can see because I'm actually on this top layer where it dropped. Here's my bridge. I've got 3 different skies in here. And same thing here. I've got 3 different options in my second image with the mountain, the painted mountain. And then I have 4 different options here with the road. Now that I've got some choices, I'm going to go ahead and start closing out the skies. And as I do this, you'll see that I get asked, do I want to save any changes? Not only have I not made changes, but the answer would still be no, because I want the skies to sort of be in their raw form, so that anytime I pull them into any image, I will go about editing at that time. I don't need any pre-edits selected, because then that makes them less useful later down the line. So I'm going to go ahead, close out all the skies. I'm not sure if I transferred that anywhere, but I actually really like that sky, so you're going to go there just in case. Right. Okay, so here we are. I am now going to change to consolidating the tabs, so now they're back across the top. And you can see that you see the mask here that I created. Oh, I didn't actually create the mask in that one, so we'll do it. Now, I'm going to go ahead and turn these off. Created my mask, and we are going to do the same thing we did on the other layer, which is to drag the edge. Again, moving it into the mountainside. We're going to hit OK. And then let's go to this one. Same thing. We created the mask. We're going to take the mask edge and drag it so that it drops into the image. And then our last one, which we already did. Okay, so now that the mask is created and I've got some sky options in, I don't really want the mask on the base layer. That is not where it belongs. So a trick to moving the mask is to left click and hold, or left click to select, and then you're going to left click and hold while holding down the Option or the Alt key. And when you do that, you'll see that you can just move the mask to each layer. And because we don't want it on our base layer, we want to see our mountain, we're just going to delete the layer mask. We only used it in that moment to create the layer mask, and that was it. The other thing that's key to this trick is to unlock the mask from its photo, from its layer. And the reason that you do this is because your mask is actually set to show the foreground, or the bottom in this case, the mountainside, and keep the revealed portion to be the sky. If you left it locked, then when you went to move the sky around from the image that the mask is now going to be used for, you'll find that you are moving the mask, and that's not what you want. Your sky hasn't moved. So you'll see what I mean in a second, but you want to go ahead and make sure that the locks are gone. Now it's just playing. So in this case, I can go ahead and I can click any one of these images to see how the clouds in those images affect the image. Now, because the way masks and layers work, as long as the viewing eye is on, you'll always see the top layer, particularly if you're in normal. So if I were to change this to a different blending mode, I might see a combination of this layer and the layer below it. But as long as the layer says normal, you're always going to be looking at the layer, the highest layer in the stack. So one of the things that you would do, and I've turned off the top 3, is now that this is selected, I'm going to use transform to be able to move it around. Do I like this pattern of cloud, or do I want another part of the image to be shown? So in this case, you go to edit and you just choose free transform, or you can hit Command or Control T. Now that I've done that, even though I've got my bounding bars on the entire image, I'm actually only moving the image that's lit here, layer 1. So go ahead, left click, and just drag. Now what I might do is go, well, where does the foreground in the cloud image come in? And I don't really want to be part of that, so I drag it down just out of the way. Go ahead and hit enter. Okay, so this is an option. It works pretty well. It's got the same sort of bluish tones as my foreground, so I'm pretty happy with this, but let's play around with the next one. One of the things that I noted in the original image is, although the sky was pretty white, there were little tinges of blue, so maybe a blue sky or some blue sky showing is acceptable because it's in the distance. So we're going to go ahead, Control or Command T again, and just drag this sky around. and see how that works. So maybe there. All right, next one. Same thing. Control T, Control or Command T, and just move the image until I see what I want. Okay, don't want the background from a different image, so there we go. And our last option. Same process, Command or Control T, and just drag. All right. Now, had those been locked, you would have watched the mask move with it, which would have thrown everything off kilter. So that's one of the reasons we unlocked it. Now kind of the creativity side comes in. This is where you get to just think about what it is you want to convey in your image. And to do that, you might turn them all off and slowly repopulate and decide which do you like better. And you'll see that the image that you're adding the sky to changes as you go through this process. That, the first one actually kind of gives the image, this is the original, kind of a moody feeling. It actually darkened everything. This one a little bit better. I'm not sure that the blue sky works, so in this case I'm going to decide this isn't the right sky, and it makes it easy. I can just delete the layer. This is my favorite part of Photoshop, layers and masks. This one sort of works because there's some bright spots in the clouds, not unlike the original sky, that sort of lend to the fact that there are bright spots on the mountain. So that one's okay. This one I think might be a little bit too bright. Let's see if we play with it a little bit, drag it down. Do we improve our luck any? All right, so these are my three options, and you know what? This process can take me some time. I might have to give it a lot of thought over and over again to decide which ones I like. In hindsight, I'm not sure I like the darkest one, so I'm going to delete it. Now I'm down to 2. Again, which do I prefer? Kind of dark and moody with some light patches, a little bit lighter. And I actually think for this image, this lighter sky, the top layer, layer 4, is the way to go. So I'm going to delete the layer. All right, I've picked the sky for this one. We're done. We're going to move back to, let's start with this one because these are the easiest. Do it one more time. Select the layer mask, hold down the Alt or Option key, left click and drag, and just populate, did that wrong, populate the layer for all the skies. Now delete the layer mask so we have our foreground again, unlock all of our layers, our layer mask from our photos, and do the exact same thing we did a second ago, which is decide what part of the cloud we want to see. Now in this case, you can also free transform it and make it fit in any way that you want. This helps you change perspective, gives you an opportunity to manipulate distance that the cloud would be from the scene because you want it to feel natural. We'll go to our second one, do the same thing. Now this one has such an angry spot to it, which I really liked. We had storms moving around us, so this one actually conveys a little bit of what the reality was at the time. Problem is that these beautiful clouds at the time were behind me. Okay, same process. This actually looks like the same cloud as the last one, but maybe not quite. So, same process. Give ourselves some options. That's actually the same. So we're going to go ahead and delete layer 4 because I grabbed the same sky twice. All right, so in this case we have 3 options, and we're going to go through the exact same process. How does the selection change our feeling about the foreground? I actually think, given the light everywhere else, this particular one is a little bright, and I'm not sure, dragging it down and getting that cloud to touch doesn't really work for me. Again, make the decision, delete it. So now I've got these 2 particular skies. This is our original. So option 1, option 2. I actually feel like this guy best represents sort of the light in the rest of the image. So I'm going to go ahead, delete layer 2. So let's go to our last one, our most complicated image. And we're going to go ahead, populate. Don't really want to do that. Populate the mask, up our choices, delete them from the foreground, and unlock skies. So now you're going to see in this case, mountain just showed up where it shouldn't have. We're going to fix that in a second. Now you can see in this image that I've got some real problems with the way the mask worked. And you know what? This happens. So, and it's also not the end of the world to have happen. And the way to fix it is to actually work just within the layer and mask. So where I want the mask to exist, I use the white. Where I don't want the mask to exist, I paint with black. So basically, and this is the kind of thing that's going to take a lot of time and patience. So can it be done? Absolutely, it can be done on any image. The question is do you have the patience to work the mask and get your edges right? So one of the things that I did was actually put the recording on pause because I knew it was going to take some time, but I cleaned up the mask. And basically I did that, as I stated, by using the brush, using black and white, depending on which direction I wanted the mask either reveal or hide. And then I've also, in this case, gone ahead and stretched that sky out. So let's look at the second. Then I repopulated that mask on these other 2 layers. So let's just take a quick look, going back through our same process as before, which is to free transform the sky so that it is in our image only. And then we'll go ahead and grab the next one and do the same thing. Notice I'm using a portrait photo with a landscaped image for the sky. So the reality of it is the direction that it goes doesn't really matter because you can free transform. Now you can see my mask isn't perfect, and partly that's just because I was kind of rushing to get this done, but it gives you an example of the fact that you can do this with complicated images as long as you're patient, really is what it comes down to. Or if it doesn't always take that kind of labor of love to get your mask in the right place, but what it does, what will help is if you have contrast. So if it's really a clear definition, for instance, this same bridge on a blue sky would have been extremely easy to mask. In fact, absolutely no effort, because I could have picked it as a color range and only picked blue. In this case, I picked a very gray bridge with a very gray sky, so I couldn't select it through a color range, and I had to do a little bit more detailed work. But the idea goes the same way, is figuring out which guy makes the most sense now that we have our mask created. And in this case, although I think this is okay, I'm not really sure that the sky works because there's too much light on the bridge and it kind of stands out as not being the same tones. So we take a look at this one. This one's probably a little bit better. Just because there's more light in the background. And then we have our third option, which also tonally is probably okay. So we're going to go ahead and make a decision about layer 1 and to delete it. And then the decision is going to be between this particular sky or this sky. And I think actually for me, I prefer this one. So I'm going to go ahead and delete the top. Now, when you go to process these images, you're going to process them like any other. The thing that I would stress, though, is that you want to process this image as a single image. And because you have a layer mask revealing and hiding parts of another layer, you end up actually working on this as 2 different things. And in this particular image, I've come back to our original landscape. You'll see that because the tones are fairly close, actually I either want to merge these layers to only have a single layer that I'm going to start editing on, or I'm going to flatten the image. So in this case, I'm just going to go ahead and choose to flatten the image. You can merge visible layers as well if you want. And if you want to actually do that, just to show you the trick to do it, you can choose Merge Visible, hold down the Alter Option key, and you will see that now I have what is called layer 5 because it was coming after layer 4. All of the images now are merged together, and up one. So if I made a decision that I wanted to change something or I had done something that I didn't like, I could actually delete and end up right back where I was, both either with the original or with the original in the new sky. So I actually prefer merging visible to flattening. I do flatten my images at the end, but when I'm working on them, I tend to merge up. So at this point, we would go through our normal process, which for me would actually be to duplicate this layer just because I like it's a good habit to always have a base that you're working from, and now start working the image and doing what I need to get the image to where I want it to be. So this is just camera raw, and I'm just starting to kind of play with sliders until I see an effect that I like. So this might be a good starting point. And as you can see, the sky and the land is working together, and that's because I've merged these. And I did it another way, I would have actually only been manipulating the sky because that was the layer right below. Or if I wanted to, I could have stuck adjustment layers between layer 0 and layer 4 and only work the foreground. But frankly, I actually find that more difficult. I think it's better to merge these guys together, the sky and the original landscape together, and work them as a single image for obvious reasons. So that's really it. The idea here is that the sky to start with on this image was quite dull and quite boring, and here it is, the original image. I was able to add a sky that had a similar tone, give it a little bit of oomph. Then I start to be able to manipulate that image to get towards a final image. Now I'm not done with this image, but I think that the point's clear about the options that you have. And this would be true of any of the other images as well. Same idea here. Have the two layers. Go ahead. You can right click, also choose merge visible, hold down the Alt key, select, and we merge visible. Same process. For me, I always like to start with camera raw just to sort of kind of start making a motion in the direction that I want. And that's it. Just kind of pop around and start to play and see where is it that I want to go with a particular image. And again, work it together by merging visible. The sky ends up working quite well, and it actually is edited as part of the original image, which is the goal. You don't want these images to feel like they're separate. You want the person viewing to believe it existed as you're showing. That's the trick. And it would be true of even this. Same thing, right click, choose merge visible by holding down the Alt or Option key, pulling them together. Whoops, in that case I actually must have flattened the layer. Sorry. Merge visible, there we go. Same process, camera raw, and starting to work the image. And in this case, I might actually open up that sky a little bit to feel a little like it goes a little bit better with the bridge, because the bridge was so much lighter. But that's it. Bingo, you're done. You've taken a very boring moment in time, the moment you were given by nature, but you're able to create it. And the thing I like about shooting the sky is that they're all your images. You're not taking these things from other people. You're not taking them from stock photography. It's all yours. And so at the end of the day, it might not be exactly what you saw, but it's what you saw in your mind, and it's what made you stop and shoot the image in the first place. So I hope this has been helpful and educational, and as I said in that blog, go out and shoot the sky. Be prepared to use it whenever you are not given what you needed in the original.